Halloween never really meant much to me. Honestly, I just saw it as a ploy for retailers to get people to spend more money. The whole idea of holidays like Halloween, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, or Father's Day, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. They're so commercialized, people forget the real meaning behind them. They just go through the motions, buying all the must-have stuff, or gifts that nobody really needs. But hey, that's just me. It's my little personal rant, and nobody needs to hear it. I'm sitting here in my favorite bar, sipping a cold beer, and munching on a juicy burger, so I can afford to think these things, you know? This year, Halloween is going to be different for me. It's the first one I'll be spending alone after everything went down. For me, this Halloween is a reminder of the price I paid for trusting too much, for being naive. Every time I think about it, I get angry, I feel regret. There's probably no trick-or-treating this year, no shared joy. I've been tricked hard. To understand what happened, you gotta go back 8 years. That's when I married Sienna Simpson, the woman I loved more than anything. Our wedding was in this beautiful old church. We exchanged vows in front of all our family and friends. Back then, I truly believed it was a perfect beginning. The next 7 years went by pretty smoothly. Sienna and I were both in our mid-20s. We had college degrees, good jobs, a stable life. We took things slow, enjoyed the little things together. I really thought I was the luckiest guy alive to have her. But then came our first Halloween as husband and wife. It was an experience I'll never forget. Sienna turned our little, simple apartment into a full-blown horror show. It was like she pulled out all the spooky stuff from my nightmares. For me, the guy who loves things simple, it was a shock, a little bit of a mental trauma. Our apartment, which I always kept clean and tidy, became a Halloween hotspot. There were cobwebs everywhere, fake skeletons, creatures with glowing red LED eyes that blinked every time someone got close. Our friends and acquaintances came over dressed in crazy costumes, vampires, witches, and other scary characters I can't even remember. My peaceful little place turned into a chaotic scene with laughter, moaning, screaming, all these sensor-activated creatures Sienna had set up everywhere. No matter where I went, they'd blink their eyes, make creepy sounds. It was just too much for me. Sienna loved Halloween. It was her time to let loose and have fun. She saw these gatherings as a way to distress and enjoy life. For her, it was like shedding all her inhibitions. For me, it was just exhausting. Every year, Sienna seemed to get even more excited about Halloween, and the plans got bigger. The decorations were more elaborate and expensive. The parties were a bigger deal. I tried to be enthusiastic for her, to show her I cared. I wanted to see her happy. I knew that being together wasn't just about sharing the same interests, it was about accepting and supporting each other's happiness. I tried, even though Halloween was never something I wanted to participate in. But I guess, in the end, my love was one-sided. To Sienna, I was just a part of the facade she wanted to create. 3 years later, we bought our first house and moved out of the apartment. Our first Halloween in our house was another eye-opening experience. My wife went all in with the Halloween theme. Our whole house, front and back, suddenly transformed into a collection of every Halloween yard display available. That was also the year we hosted our first Halloween party. Parties weren't really my thing. I don't like crowds. I'm not really a social butterfly. I prefer to stay home, in my own space, rather than deal with a bunch of drunk people. My wife, on the other hand, loved those social gatherings. She found them energizing and exciting. Usually, I would show up at those events and come home mentally and physically exhausted, while she'd come back from the same party amped up like a 2-day-old clock, excited and buzzing. Every year, as Halloween approached, things got worse. The decorations got more elaborate and expensive. The parties became more frequent and, in my opinion, more demanding and tiring. But I loved my wife, and I knew that showing at least some interest in her Halloween obsession meant a happier year for both of us. You know, happy wife, happy life? Last year, things changed. I thought the changes were for the best when I first heard about them. My wife still insisted on decorating the interior and exterior of the house. Again, new decorations. I wrestled everything out and arranged it as she requested. I fully expected us to throw another party, but was surprised when Sienna announced that instead of hosting one, we would be attending the citywide Halloween party at the local convention center. She'd bought VIP tickets for the event. Even the $150 per ticket seemed like a good deal to me, since I wouldn't have to prepare for the party or clean up afterward. Having tickets meant we got dinner and an open bar all night, which didn't dampen my enthusiasm. It being Halloween, of course, it was a costume event. I planned to do what I usually did and find some cheap adult costumes at the local discount store. My wife wasn't having it. She quickly informed me that she would take care of the costumes. When she told me that, I shrugged and forgot about finding a costume. 2 days before the big event, Sienna was brimming with excitement. I knew she'd start looking forward to this event many days before it actually happened. But even I was surprised by the level of excitement she had. But hey, if she was happy, I was happy. That year, Halloween fell on a Saturday. The citywide party was held Saturday night. Sienna spent most of the day with a smile on her face and actually dancing around our house. I was pleased. That afternoon, when she brought out our costumes, I was surprised. Sienna had gone all out and rented out stage costumes for each of us. When she walked into the den with mine, to say I was surprised is an understatement. Holding the costume on a hanger above her shoulder, Sienna proudly displayed the complete Batman costume. I knew I could fit into it. I'm 6'5" and played college ball as a wide receiver. I'm about 30 pounds lighter than I was when I played, but I'm still in good shape. The costume had a bodysuit and padding to add a little more bulk. I looked at it and smiled. Wow, looks hot. But that's no problem. What's yours? I saw a wicked smile come over her face. You'll see that tonight when we go to the party, and you'll think I'm very hot in it. I nodded, appreciating her innuendo and her expression. I'll leave your costume in the living room. You can change in there. I'm going to go get ready in our bedroom. No peeking. I agreed and sat back down in my armchair. The Dallas Cowboys were playing the Houston Oilers in their annual cross-state rivalry game. I forgot all about the party watching the two teams battle. When the game ended, I went upstairs to get ready for the party. Our bedroom door was closed, and I could hear the shower running. With a smile, I went to the living room to put on the costume. Waiting downstairs in full Batman regalia, I looked in the hallway mirror. I had to admit, the costume was amazing. It was true to the tiniest details on the utility belt. The downside was the extra padding in the costume would make it hot, and the rubber cowl and mask were heavy and pressed against my face and head. I figured a few drinks would ease the discomfort and make the night a lot more enjoyable. Gazing at myself in the mirror, I heard Sienna open our bedroom door. I turned to watch her come down the stairs. Before I could see anything beyond her lower legs, I knew this was going to be interesting. I saw a pair of thigh-high leather boots. Well, whatever the boots were made of, it looked like leather. The heels had to be at least 5, maybe 6 inches high. As Sienna came down the stairs, I saw a rubber bodysuit that looked like it had been sprayed on. My reaction was immediate. The bodysuit of my costume suddenly became much tighter as my erection became very apparent. When Sienna came into full view, I realized she was covered in rubber, head to toe. Her costume included a full rubber mask with 2 long, flowing pigtails down either side. It was definitely a change. Sienna wasn't a petite creature. She's almost 5'11" and well-proportioned. She has a large, full chest, wide hips, and long legs. Her dark brown hair is cut in a bob, so seeing her as a blonde was quite a surprise. I whistled my approval, and she sauntered towards me. Like it? What's not to like? Let's skip the party, go trick-or-treating, and then come back and have our own Halloween. No way, honey. You'll get your reward later, but we're making the most of these tickets tonight. I reluctantly agreed, and we set off for the convention center. The parking lot was full. Like I said, it was a city-wide event, and it was proving to be very popular. The VIP tickets got us a table with 3 other couples near the dance floor and the bandstand. We were just a few steps from one of the open bars. I figured the night was shaping up to have great potential. We introduced ourselves to the other couples at the table. I let Sienna go get drinks. The bar near our table had a long line. I saw another bar in the back of the hall with no line. I headed towards that one. As I weaved through the crowd, I was surprised to see that my Batman costume was a popular choice. I counted at least 6 other costumes exactly like mine. The costume rental places were probably behind this party and making a fortune. I also noticed that there were at least 5 other costumes exactly like the one my wife was wearing. After dinner, I headed back to the bar for another drink. As I was waiting in line, the band kicked into their set and the lights dimmed. Finally, I got my new drink and went back to our table, but Sienna wasn't there. One of the other couples at our table told me that a guy in a 1930s gangster costume had asked her to dance. No big deal though, because I'm not a dancer and never had a problem with Sienna dancing with other guys when we were out together. I sat down and turned to watch the dance floor. Scanning the dance floor, I spotted at least 3 women in the exact same costume as my wife out on the floor. One was easy to tell apart. Since she was shorter and rounder than my wife, she was easy to identify. One of the other 2 could be my wife. From a distance, they were all tall with long legs, and clearly having a great time. The woman who was dancing with a shorter dude in a pinstriped gangster suit with a fedora was doing my wife's signature moves. I sat back and enjoyed my drink, watching. After a couple of hours of partying, I had done my best to get my money's worth from the open bar. I didn't feel drunk, just comfortably buzzed. I figured that, despite my own beliefs, I was about to get seriously hammered. Trying to keep track of my wife every minute wasn't my usual MO. She's a big girl who can take care of herself. She had come back to the table several times to sit for a while. The last time she was there, she finished her drink, and I needed another one. I went to the bar, and when I came back, she was gone again. I sat down and placed my drink on the table. One of the guys at our table, a younger guy, was struggling with a broken leg. He and I started talking. As we were chatting, I saw him look up and over my shoulder. I turned and smiled when I saw my wife approaching. This time, she sat down across from me and leaned over the table. In my slightly inebriated state, all I could think about was getting her home and peeling that rubber off of her. I guess my cognitive abilities were more impaired than I thought. "Hey Batman, you haven't danced a single dance, come on." My wife often coaxed me to dance a few times. I took her hand and stood up, joining her on the dance floor. The song that started was a slow one, and I felt her pressing her rubber-clad body against my padded bodysuit. My arms went around her, and we began to move to my clumsy rhythm. My dance moves were pretty much the same as when I was trying to handle a 300-pound defensive lineman. I'm not the most graceful man. The first song transitioned to a second slow song, and we continued to move together. My hands were placed on her waist when, all of a sudden, I felt her hand touch mine and move down to rest on my butt. I smiled behind the mask and gave her a gentle squeeze on her voluptuous cheeks, making her giggle. When the song ended, she took my hand and pulled me towards the bar. I ordered 2 more drinks, handing her one. We stood near the bar, watching others dance. I had to admit, I was thirsty and quickly downed my glass. I ordered another one for myself and looked at her, trying to gauge her intentions. My expectation that she would find someone else to dance with was wrong. I saw a mischievous glint in those eyes when she took my hand, leading me around the bar. Pulling back the heavy drapes that formed the barrier surrounding the bar, I saw a dark space in the distance. Following her into the darkness, I found myself in a recess that contained a lot of electrical equipment. The next thing I felt were hands working on the front of my costume. She seemed to be familiar with how the costume was designed. In seconds, she had removed the utility belt and was unzipping the bodysuit. I gasped as I felt the cool air on my penis, and then felt her hands removing it from the costume. In the dim light, I saw her drop to her knees and felt her lips wrap around my shaft. With my eyes closed, I leaned back against whatever was behind me and let the feeling wash over me. It didn't take her long to bring me to a climax worthy of a superhero. She slowly stood up, looked up at me, and used a rubber-covered finger to wipe my mouth, and then sucked the finger clean. I was surprised to see that she didn't say a word, just walked out of the recess and disappeared back into the party. I stood there for a while before adjusting my costume, buckling the utility belt, and heading out myself. Stopping at the bar, I asked the bartender for a double scotch, as usual, and he gave me a knowing smile. Accepting the drink, I staggered a little bit towards our table. Sitting by myself for a while, my wife finally returned to the dance floor after another song ended. She sat down next to me and looked around. "No drink for me?" "Sorry. Do you want me to get another one?" She smiled and leaned down to whisper in my ear. "Not for me. The party's almost over. Let's get out of here and go home." That was what I'd been waiting to hear all night. I stood up and realized I was more affected than I thought I was. Sienna grabbed my arm to steady me. "Be careful, Batman. I might need to drive the Batmobile home." Nodding in agreement, I reached into the pouch on my utility belt and handed her the keys. Back at home, I quickly took off my costume and tossed it on the bed in the living room. I had stripped off everything in the costume, so I walked down the hallway naked. Smiling broadly as I walked in, I saw Sienna was still wrestling with the rubber. If you've never dealt with a skin-tight rubber suit on a sweaty body, you wouldn't understand the issue. I moved to help her, and we ended up laughing as we struggled with the rubber. Finally, we found ourselves on the bed, panting, both naked. I rolled over and stroked her bare breasts. I've been waiting for this since we found that dark corner in the hall. Even though I was slightly drunk, I knew something wasn't right. Sienna seemed tense, and she turned her head to look directly into my eyes. Tell me more about it. Don't you remember, you came back to the table, and we danced. After a couple of slow songs, we went for fresh drinks and ended up in that equipment recess behind the drapes at the bar. I saw a reluctant smile creep across her face. Did you like what happened? Absolutely. That was one of the best blowjobs you've ever given me. Sienna rolled over to the other side of the bed and stood up, placing her hands on her hips and looking down at me. That's interesting because I never danced with you all night, and I certainly never went into any dark rooms with you. Let's just say things went downhill from there. There were tears, shouting accusations, and blame. I tried my best to smooth things over, explaining that the woman I thought was Sienna was wearing the same costume. I blamed my inability to see the difference on my inebriated state, but Sienna wasn't buying any of it. The rest of the night was spent in the living room. The following days were a whirlwind of chaos. Sienna wouldn't talk to me, she avoided me, as if I were a ghost. Between the awkward silences, the ringing of the phone signaled calls from her lawyer, their sharp, cold voice reminding me of the harshness of the law, of the disadvantages I faced in this divorce battle. I knew you'd do this, I whispered, my voice hollow. Sitting alone in the now empty apartment, I looked around, each corner holding a memory of Sienna, of the life we had. The scent of roses still lingered, a painful reminder of what I had lost. What will I do now? My voice echoed, small and lost in the silence. The question lingered in my mind, a wordless curse relentlessly tearing at my mind. I tried to find Sienna, called, texted, even went to her parents' house, but all in vain. She disappeared as if dissolving into the air, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my life. Sienna, my love, please listen to me, I pleaded in my last message. You are my whole world. Please don't do this. The last time I saw Sienna was at the courthouse, when she came to sign the divorce papers. She looked at me with cold, distant eyes, as if I were a stranger. You disgust me, she said, her voice like ice. I never want to see you again. Sienna, you can hear me explain. Shut up, she snapped. You have no right to say anything more. Sienna couldn't get over the fact that I had performed oral sex on a stranger. There weren't many excuses, and none of them seemed to appease her. I tried to explain that it was just a one-off, a mistake, that no actual intercourse had occurred, and that no harm had been done. Surprisingly, those arguments seemed to only make her angrier. It was like no matter what I said, I was only making things worse. I suggested counseling, and the response I got was divorce papers and a restraining order. The second week after the party, I found myself looking for a cheap apartment. That brings me here. Sitting in this bar by myself on this last night of October, I try to push away thoughts of a Halloween gone wrong, of the burger and beer in front of me, but I can't help but find it all bland and uninspiring. The booze isn't soothing the emptiness, only making it more depressing. I lift my head and scan the dimly lit room, watching the blurry reflections in the faces around me. Then a strange woman approaches the bar, her face vaguely familiar. I frown, trying to place her, but nothing comes to mind. Suddenly, she glances over and catches my eye. A wry smile appears, and she moves closer, taking the seat beside me. Bad Halloween night? She asks, raising her glass in a toast and taking a sip. Bad is a bit of an understatement, I reply, managing a wry chuckle. There's something about her voice that seems off-kilter, like there's an unspoken undercurrent running beneath the surface. Let me guess, she says, her voice laced with mischief. You met a seductive woman. Things went well. But the next morning it all fell apart. My heart stutters, then pounds faster. How do you know that? She laughs, her eyes glinting with an unsettling kind of understanding. Sometimes women's intuition can be pretty sharp, but then again, I might just be a storyteller. She takes another large swig, then sets her glass down on the table. I was just wondering, she continues after a moment of silence, her tone suddenly sharp. Did you ever wonder why that mysterious girl disappeared so easily? Or why your wife never gave you a chance to explain yourself? Her words cut into me like a sweet, sharp knife. What do you mean? She smiles, but it's not a playful smile, more like a knowing one. Did you ever think that maybe your wife wasn't just a victim in this, that maybe she was directing the whole play? A chill crawls down my spine, from the top of my head to my toes. I take a deep breath, trying not to let my anger show. You don't know what happened between my wife and me, so stop making these vague insinuations. She shrugged, nonchalant. Sure, but I'll let you in on a little secret you might want to hear. She leaned in close, whispering, I was at the party that night, too. I saw your wife, exchanging something with the other woman wearing the same outfit. My heart stopped. My entire body froze, unable to move. What are you talking about? Your wife, Sienna. She knew your every move. She probably knew about your perspective on Halloween. She hired someone to pull that act. And this wasn't just some prank. It was a sweet revenge to make you feel guilty, regretful, and believe it was all your fault. I was stunned, feeling like I'd been punched hard. This betrayal hurt more than any misunderstanding about that night's incident. I started replaying every action, every word Sienna said before we divorced. Everything seemed perfectly orchestrated, from the costumes to the expressions of anger. It was a whole play that I never saw coming. So it was all a fake, I mumbled, struggling to form the words. The stranger smiled, finding it amusing. Not entirely. Your regret wasn't. You really did feel a loss, and that was exactly what she wanted. I was numb, a sense of betrayal washing over me. What did she want from me? She wanted you to hurt, she replied, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. She wanted you to understand that when you didn't understand and love the things she was passionate about, you were slowly wearing away her patience. I couldn't speak. My head was spinning with the absurd implications of what this woman was saying. My anger boiled. How could this be true? My marriage to Sienna had been peaceful, maybe not perfect, but what she was saying was ludicrous. We had loved each other, built everything together. How could there be such elaborate staging and betrayal? The stranger just chuckled, took a sip of her drink, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Believe it or not, it's up to you, she said nonchalantly, as if she'd just shared a silly story, completely unfazed by the anger evident on my face. The feeling of being betrayed made me unable to sit still for another minute. I stood up, tossed a few bills on the counter to pay, and walked out without looking back at her. Back home, I slumped into a chair, burying my face in my hands. The anger was still there, but it was now being replaced with confusion. What the woman had said kept running through my head. Who was she? Why was she making such ludicrous conclusions? Each time I thought about it, I got more agitated. But at the same time, a small fragment of memory, a sense of unease, details from the past year that I'd ignored before, suddenly flooded back. The next few days passed in a haze of shock and despair. I couldn't escape the shadow of that video. Those moments of Sienna with the man in the gangster costume kept haunting me, each frame replaying endlessly. Every time I looked back, it felt like someone was punching me hard in the chest, a painful, choking feeling, unable to breathe. 8 years of our lives, everything I'd believed about Sienna, buried. Even though we were divorced, that pain felt like it had just been unearthed, exposed, and stomped on. Unable to cope, I started frequenting the bar, sitting there every day, staring at my beer, hoping to see that strange woman again, as if she held the answers I was struggling to find. Every night I sat in the same spot, silently watching the door, only to return home with a heart full of disappointment and loneliness. Then, one weeknight, as I was about to stand up, a soft voice came from behind me. So, what have you decided? I turned, startled, and found the woman standing there, her eyes sparkling with an alluring calmness. It was too late to ask why she'd been gone for days, so I just quietly returned to my bar stool. She sat next to me, her eyes never leaving mine. I sighed, took a sip of my beer, and looked straight at her. I saw the video. Now I'm not sure what I want, but I need you to tell me more. What was it all about? The stranger smiled, gently swirling her drink. I guess you've been wrestling with what you saw. Have you come to terms with the fact that there was more to your marriage than you knew? She said it like she was teasing me to dive into a deeper, larger truth that I hadn't grasped yet. I remained silent, tense with anticipation as the mysterious woman took a sip of her drink, as if considering something. She swirled her drink comfortably, and then looked at me, her eyes cold, but with a hint of empathy. Do you want to know the whole truth? She said, her voice calm, but with something hidden beneath the surface. Of course I do, I replied, unable to hide the urgency in my voice. She leaned back in her seat, her eyes seeming to travel through a distant memory. Sienna and I were in college together, and actually we've been rivals since then. She paused to take another sip of her drink, her gaze turning sharp. Sienna isn't as innocent as you might think. In college, she was known for charming other people's boyfriends, playing the damsel in distress to get guys to protect her. We never got along, and she knew that. I listened in shock. Turns out, Sienna wasn't just the normal girl I'd thought she was. She continued, her words sharp as knives. That Halloween night, I was at the party too. The whole town knew about the event, and I decided to go in costume as Harley Quinn as a joke. I was having a few drinks, standing at the bar, and I saw Sienna whispering something to another girl in the exact same outfit as her. There was clearly something shady going on, and because I never liked Sienna, I couldn't help but be curious. When they went into the bathroom together, I stayed close by to see what she was up to. I felt my body tense, my hand clenching around my beer glass so hard I thought I'd crush it. She continued, not missing a single detail. I heard clearly. Sienna was telling the other woman to play her. The Batman's girl was how Sienna called you, because she knew you weren't someone who paid much attention to Halloween. They planned to trick you into feeling guilty, thinking you'd betrayed Sienna. Meanwhile, she's having fun with another guy in a gangster suit. I felt my blood boil, every detail of that night swirling in my mind. The woman looked at me intently, then leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. I was going to stay out of it because it was her business, after all, and we never got along. But when I saw you here every day, I couldn't let this injustice continue without revealing the truth. I managed a bitter laugh, a wave of bitterness washing over me mixed with a sense of helplessness. I'd been sitting here all night, drinking countless glasses, trying to find answers in the booze, or at least a bit of solace, but to no avail. And the woman sat silently beside me, her gaze seeming to say something but remaining silent, letting me face my emotions on my own. I kept my head down, staring at the table, until I heard her voice calling me. But I couldn't bring myself to look up, not sure if it was exhaustion or a lack of strength to face her. "Are you okay?" Her voice came again, this time seeming more urgent. I didn't respond, lost in my own empty space. Finally, I felt her hands lift my chin. My heavy eyes closed, then slowly opened. My sleepy gaze must have startled her, and she looked clearly confused. "Good heavens, are you this drunk?" she muttered, gently pulling my hand away. I didn't respond, not even the strength to hold on to anyone anymore. The woman sighed, looking at the bartender nearby and saying, "I can't possibly get him into a taxi by myself. Can you lend me a hand?" The bartender, after a moment of hesitation, nodded in agreement. They helped me outside, each step a wobble. "Just a little longer. I'll get you to a hotel," she said softly as we got into the cab, her voice tinged with fatigue, but strangely soothing. I don't remember much about being in the car, just the feeling of her murmuring as I drifted off to sleep. "Come on, just this once, okay?" The sensation was like my whole body was floating. The gentle rocking of the car caused me to wake up a bit and then drift off again. In my hazy state, I only vaguely remember someone supporting me and a gentle voice guiding me step by step. My legs felt like they were filled with lead, and by the time I realized it, my body had been guided to a bed. I collapsed onto the mattress, feeling the warmth of the blanket envelop me, warmer than all the coldness of that night. For a moment, all there was silence. Unconsciously, my hand reached out for something to hold on to, and I accidentally grasped her wrist as she turned to leave. "Don't go," I mumbled, my voice weak but pleading. The woman stopped, looking down at my hand, gripping her tightly. There was a moment of hesitation, but then she gently sat down next to the bed, placing her other hand on my shoulder, patting me reassuringly. "Okay, I won't," she said softly, her voice unusually warm. "Go to sleep, I'll be here." Touched by her consideration, an impulse made my hand tremble, reaching out to gently touch her cheek. Her smooth skin was warm, making me unable to resist. I tilted my head slightly, my lips brushed against hers in a clumsy kiss. The woman returned my kiss, a passionate, deep kiss. The feeling, like an electric current running through my body, made me forget all my tiredness, all my worries. I pulled her closer, my hands slipping into her hair, stroking gently. The woman responded with affectionate gestures, her hands gliding lightly over my body, making me crave more. We exchanged passionate kisses, tight embraces. My body seemed to dissolve into hers in a sweet, intoxicating rapture. The coldness of the night faded, replaced by the warmth and intensity of love. In that moment, we were just two souls blending together, forgetting everything around us. The euphoria of pleasure made me feel like I was flying. She was everything, the only thing I craved. The faint morning light crept through the curtains, and I felt a familiar warmth that wasn't coming from the blanket I was under, but from the person lying beside me. I blinked, then slowly realized that the woman was still sleeping, my arm gently wrapped around her as if I wanted to keep that warmth forever. Her face now was gentle and peaceful, unlike the sharp features from last night. For the first time, I saw her at ease and approachable. Unconsciously, a slight smile appeared on my lips. I reached out to gently stroke her soft hair, still surprised remembering what happened last night, the intense conversations and her unexpected comfort for me. Only lying here beside her did I fully understand the silent care she'd given me all night. She'd brought me home, endured my bottled-up emotions for days. That drunken escapade also helped me learn her name, Anna. She stirred in her sleep, squinting slightly as if avoiding the light, but still not awake. I kept my eyes on her, trying to commit every gentle feature of this rare moment to memory. Anna moved slightly, her long lashes slowly opening. Her eyes met mine, and she looked a little surprised, then immediately broke into a soft smile. The feeling of awkwardness and a little shyness seemed to be evident on both our faces. But then she slowly reached out to touch my shoulder, as if to make sure I was really there and not a dream. "Good morning," she said, her voice a little hoarse, a combination of gentleness and a hint of hesitancy. "Good morning, Anna," I replied, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Last night, thank you." Anna laughed. "You really are the most stubborn man I've ever met. If I hadn't dragged you out, you'd probably still be stuck in that bar until sunrise." I chuckled too, feeling lighter and happier than I'd been in a long time. "I was a burden, you didn't have to do that." "No burden at all," she interrupted, her voice firm but warm. "I just didn't want to see someone, as good as you, keep torturing yourself." She held my gaze as if to make sure I understood her intention. We both fell silent again, a silence filled with understanding. I gently held her hand, feeling a mix of emotion and gratitude. It's been a long time since I felt like this, like I could start again somehow. "Then try," she whispered, gripping my hand tightly. I lay there, still holding Anna in my arms, feeling her steady breathing, and unconsciously reflecting on what had happened. It was strange how a lonely person, once full of doubt and bitterness like me, could feel so peaceful in this moment, as if all the pain and betrayal had washed away with last night. No need to question, no longer the feeling of needing to understand every detail behind Sienna's deceptions. That only made me tired, more lost. Even though I was divorced from Sienna, the anger and the lingering pain still existed somewhere inside me, but I realized they didn't need to control my life. Really, finding peace wasn't just about letting go of one person, it was about moving forward, living a life I wanted, unburdened by the past. Anna seemed to know a lot about hurt and failure, but she was also the one who helped me realize the value of moving forward. I looked towards the future with a different perspective. Maybe I didn't need to know every answer from the past. I didn't need to be sure where I was going. Sometimes it's enough to have a companion, a safe place to return to, and to face new challenges together. The days that followed were a whirlwind of rediscovery. Anna, with her sharp wit and unwavering empathy, became a constant in my life, a comforting presence I hadn't realized I craved. We explored the city together, its bustling streets a stark contrast to the quiet solitude I'd previously embraced. We laughed over silly jokes, shared stories of our past, and found solace in each other's company. There were moments, of course, when the shadow of Sienna crept back, her manipulative tactics lingering like a phantom. I'd catch myself replaying old memories, questioning every word she'd uttered, every gesture she'd made. But Anna was always there, patiently guiding me through the maelstrom of doubt. She helped me dissect the past, not to dwell on it, but to understand it. She taught me that Sienna's actions, while hurtful, were ultimately a reflection of her own insecurities and flaws, not a condemnation of my worth. With Anna, I started to rediscover the joy in simple things. We'd spend hours in cafes discussing books and ideas, sharing dreams and anxieties. We'd walk along the beach at sunset, her hand resting lightly on mine, her presence a comforting anchor in the ever-changing tide of life. One evening, as we sat on a park bench, watching children chase pigeons, Anna turned to me, her eyes shimmering with unspoken emotions. "You know," she said softly, "Sienna's actions were cruel, but they also set you free." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "You were stuck in a gilded cage," she explained. "You thought you were happy, but you were living a lie. Sienna's manipulation, while painful, forced you to confront the truth. You had to rebuild your life, and in doing so, you found yourself." Her words resonated with me. I realized that Sienna's betrayal, while a catalyst for pain, had inadvertently led me to self-discovery. I had been trapped in a comfortable rut, blind to the limitations I had imposed upon myself. Now, with Anna by my side, I felt empowered to break free from those chains, to explore new horizons, and to embrace the unknown. The feeling of vulnerability that I had once felt, the fear of being hurt again, slowly dissipated as I began to trust Anna. She never pushed, never rushed, but her presence was a constant reassurance, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I learned to trust her intuition, her wisdom, and her unwavering belief in me. One rainy afternoon, as we huddled together in a cozy bookstore, surrounded by the scent of old paper and ink, I confessed my fear of falling in love again. "I don't want to get hurt," I admitted, my voice a mere whisper. Anna looked at me, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know," she said softly. "But love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about embracing the possibility of joy even if it comes with risks. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be a better version of yourself." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized that I had been so focused on the past, so consumed by the fear of repeating past mistakes, that I had forgotten the potential for happiness. I had allowed Sienna's betrayal to dictate my future, to limit my capacity for love. "Anna," I whispered, "I think I'm falling in love with you." She smiled, a warm, radiant light that chased away the lingering shadows of doubt. "I think I am too," she replied, her voice filled with tenderness. The love that blossomed between us was a slow, steady flame, fueled by mutual respect, shared dreams, and a deep understanding of each other's souls. We navigated the complexities of life, supporting each other through challenges and celebrating victories. We became partners in crime, confidantes and lovers, creating a life filled with laughter, adventure, and unconditional love. Years passed, marked by milestones and growth. We built a home together, a haven of warmth and laughter. Our shared experiences forged a bond stronger than any storm. We had weathered the tempest of betrayal and emerged stronger, our love a testament to resilience and the transformative power of forgiveness. But life, as it often does, threw us another curveball. Sienna resurfaced, seeking redemption for her past transgressions. She stood before us, her once assured confidence replaced by a vulnerability that seemed genuine. "I know I hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "I was young, foolish, and desperate for attention. I used manipulation as a shield, but it only created a chasm between us. I am truly sorry." Anna looked at me, her eyes seeking my consent. I felt a surge of anger, memories of the pain she had inflicted flashing through my mind. But there was also a flicker of understanding, a recognition that she had changed, perhaps for the better. I turned to Sienna, meeting her gaze. "It's taken a long time to forgive you, Sienna," I said, my voice steady. "But I understand that people can change. The pain you caused me was real, and I can't erase it. But I choose to move forward, to focus on the happiness I've found with Anna." Sienna nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I understand," she whispered. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you can find it in your heart to accept my apology. I'm grateful for the lessons I learned, and I'm determined to be a better person." I watched as she walked away, a lone figure disappearing into the bustling crowd. It was a bittersweet moment, a closure I had never sought but found nonetheless. Sienna's apology, while unexpected, had given me a sense of peace. The past was behind me. A chapter one had closed with grace and forgiveness. The life I had built with Anna continued to flourish, a testament to the strength of our love and the power of second chances. We had found solace in each other's arms, navigating the complexities of life with unwavering trust and unwavering love. The wounds of the past had healed, leaving behind a scar that reminded us of the strength we possessed, the resilience we had discovered. As the sun set on our shared journey, casting long shadows across our cozy home, I knew that our love story was far from over. We had a lifetime of adventures ahead, a future filled with boundless possibilities, and a love that would forever be a beacon of hope, a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness. and the beauty of finding solace in the most unexpected places. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more stories. Remember, life is full of surprises. Stay curious and keep exploring. See ya!